Welcome. Wait a second. One more time. Wait. Welcome to the ninth episode of Born in Trouble. I'm your host, John X. And you know what? The mantra that I've adopted this year, bringing you the best in big conversation on the internet. That's right. There might be some a little bit less mid. There might be some a little bit more mid. But I'm telling you, best mid. And I'm here with my illustrious guest from the city of Detroit, the city ring king, Mr. Grant Lancaster.
What up, though? How you feel, Bridget?
You know, just making it do what it do. And our special guest from parts unknown, somewhere down in South America, making a deal for all the brothers in the hood, Mr. Andrew Johnson.
You're damn right. What's up, fellas?
If that doesn't get you checked at the border, I don't know what will, Andrew. That's right. You know, we're gonna get right into it today. We're gonna just start it off right away with the drama. You know, this show is called Born in Trouble. It's not called Walking on Eggshells for a reason, because this brother does not walk on eggshells ever. That's his mama died. You know, speaking of which, man, Andrew, how you doing, bro? What are you doing in South America right now?
Man, I'm hanging out with my boys. We planned a trip, and they jumped on and said, "Hey, you want to come? I know it's last minute." And so I got a hall pass. I'm down here hanging out with my boy.
Hold on. That round of applause is not for you. That's for Mrs. Johnson. Mrs. Andrew Johnson. Damn, that woman loves you.
Yeah,
that's why you're the host of the 313 podcast about relationships. You can get a free hall pass. Well, I don't know about a hall pass. You just say a free pass.
She also sent me an image of an upgraded diamond ring she's got her eye on too. So
this ain't for Mrs. Johnson.
But I'm gonna keep pushing it back as long as I can, but we'll see what happens.
Mrs. Andrew Johnson. Don't drop the bombs on him.
Yeah, look, get a little quid pro quo in there.
There you go. But you know, that's how you keep your relationship good, though.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to talk about something else, but you know, I was listening to TikTok today, and it was the first day in probably about 4 days. I've been listening to you fellas and kind of detoxing from this stuff, you know. So a conversation actually broke out in one of the rooms about relationships, specifically about Black women and their expectations for Black men and their expectations for relationships. And the kicker in the bottom of the headline was what scared me when I was looking at it, that made me want to listen to it, which is, if you don't want Black men, don't get mad when other people start picking them up. And the thing with it, you like that? You like that, Clint? Okay.
I like the idea.
So this one young lady, she was cooking, Black woman, she was cooking. Like, I mean, 4 pots, the oven on, everything. She was just going all in on it. And her assertion was basically like, look, you can't be mad at these people from these other races that pick up these men, and you want your man to have this car, to have this job, to look this way, to pay for this meal, to be this way. And that's not even a reasonable expectation. These other women are coming in and you're leaving the door open for women of other races to come in and take Black men because of the fact that they see in them what you don't see in them, and they're more willing to work with them. So don't be mad if your expectation is too high. Andrew, wasn't it you that said that 80%, the 80% thing you were saying, 80% of men said if they can get 80% of the woman that was the ideal woman, they would be like, yeah. And most of them said, yeah. And the other part with women, they said, nah, we're not fucking with 80%. We need 100. Was that you?
Majority of it, yeah. Well, a majority of women said that, when I say majority, it was a little over 50% said they want 100. And a few of them said they could work with 80. But the men said 80 is good. But here's the deal, John. I used to do an exercise when I was counseling females. And one of the exercises I would do with them, I say, list 5 things that you want from your potential spouse, husband, long-term boyfriend. List 5 things. So they would write 5 things down on paper. And then I say, if you got to cross out 2, and you have to cross out 2 of them that you got to give up. Just cross them out. They would reluctantly cross them out. And then after they showed and they were done, and they only had 3 out of 5, which is 60%. And I said, if you get 3 out of your 5 wants, that's your husband.
And
But
they probably went out to your
speaking,
secretary and said, we need another therapist.
Exactly. You know what?
Right?
That's how it works. Nobody is getting 100, and very few people get 80. So mostly everybody gets 60.
Right.
I mean, that's just the way it is. You don't get everything you want from somebody. It's a want. You don't get everything. You ain't gonna get. You're not gonna build that man, and he's gonna give you 100% of what you want. It doesn't work that way. You get 60. That's a win, because that's what most people who are in long-term relationships and marriages, has been long for years and years and years. That's what they got. The difference between them and you is you're not satisfied with that. And that's the problem. You're not going to get 100%. Even if you get 80, you did damn good. You outperformed the mean, the average.
Yes.
So, take that 60 and be good with it, because that's generally what you're going to end up with. You're not getting, it's funny you even say this, John, because the next episode that I got dropping on Saturday is called High Dating Standards. And I'm going to be talking about a little bit of this on that particular episode. Go ahead.
Time is a bitch.
So, but isn't this America's problem though? That there is no like, I don't want to call it settling, because it's not settling. It's just understanding that nobody's perfect. You know what I mean? Like, isn't that kind of like the baseline of what we're talking about? I mean, nobody's perfect. Michael Bob, man, like, he's one of my quotable uncles. He told me, unless you're gonna be single, you're gonna have to deal with somebody's shit.
Yeah.
Right. That's the bottom line. It don't make no difference. I don't agree with everything my mama say.
Right.
I don't agree with everything my daddy say. So I don't expect no woman to come in and for me to agree with everything that she says.
See, what my mother told me. Oh, go ahead. You were
you good.
No, well, what my mother had told me was that you don't choose a woman based upon the things that you like about her. You choose her based upon the worst things that you like about her, and you decide whether or not you can deal with that shit. So, and if you can deal with the worst thing about her, then the rest of it's kind of easy.
Right.
You can work your way up. I actually ended up jumping in the conversation because I was on my way out and I didn't really have time. And I've been trying to I've really been trying to detox from these like toxic places and stuff. But I was just I found myself, putting things in the comments, and so much so that the person that was running the thing sent me an invite to jump on the panel, and I did. What I said when I went out there was I just related the story of my parents, which is very simple. My father was a truck driver. My mother was a regular worker, and she became superintendent of the building in Brooklyn. And my father would go out and he would make the money and he would bring it home to my mother, and my mother would save it. and then she saved enough for us to go out there and buy a house on Long Island. This was before I was born. They were a team. It wasn't because of he had the bag. He had potential. He had an idea, and she helped him to achieve his idea. Things happened for him because my father, I can tell you, till the day he died, he was really terrible with money. But my mother was excellent in that way. And this is what it is. You find a partner, you find partners, and you work with it that way, no matter who it is. And most of these women, they've been fooled and tricked. The worst part about it is that with the history, I feel like there's like a 20-year gap in history that was stolen from us, from between the crack epidemic and then just basically the Iraqi war and all of the messages and images that were thrown at us that just made us forget all about what happened in the Black community in the 60s and the 70s and even parts of the 80s, especially in the 80s, because that's when those people, the fruit started to flourish. And if you look at even entertainment, like the Wayans brothers, they're basically children of the 80s. That whole family, Puff, 80s, Jay-Z, the 80s. Most of your well-known people, in the Black community, even the ones that are making money, they have their roots in that time. And there were some fantastic things going on. But from the way that they talk about it now, nothing was going on. Yeah, I was just like, chilling. Everybody was just chilling. Andrew, were you in school or something? Were you getting a college degree at that time?
What, the late 80s or 90s or
Late 80s, early 90s? Yeah.
at that time, I was actually in the military, and I was going to school part-time.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get my degree until I was 25 years old.
You were
Because
progressing.
I didn't go full-time. I was going part-time while I was in the military.
You
Once
were
I finished the
progressing.
degree, I got out the military.
You were progressing in life. It's safe to say that at 21 years old, you weren't the greatest catch for a lot of women that you ran into, but
No,
but
not at all.
but half of them recognize your quality, and that's who you ended up with.
Right. Well, it literally boils down to, I use an example where a lot of women will look and they'll say things like, well, I see a lot of very rich men and their wives just look sort of ordinary, or their wives aren't overly beautiful or have the aesthetics and stuff like that, and I tell them that a lot of those women got them on the come up. So when they didn't have nothing, it's like the Georgian Wheezy on the Jefferson. She was with him when he had nothing. He was a high school dropout, essentially. At least that's how the script went.
Mm-hmm.
But he worked his way up, and she built with him, and they became something. I just recently, about maybe a month or so ago, I did an episode called Blended Families, and I interviewed a couple who's been married for 19 years. And they had a blended family. They both brought a child to the marriage, and then they ended up having their own child together. But I asked them, what was it like in the beginning when you first get married? And they said, honestly, the first 10 years of our marriage was about survival. We were living essentially, check to check, just making it, doing what we had to do. We were out here grinding. We were moving forward, but we were in survival mode. Nobody nowadays wants to do that. And that's amazing to me, that people they're literally waiting for the guy to make all the money, and they're all standing around waiting for him to pick one of them.
Yeah,
It's a failed strategy. It's a failed strategy. It's not going to work.
Yeah,
and so I don't understand that.
My point was that when you're choosing a mate, you're choosing a partner. You're not choosing just if you're just choosing the prettiest girl in the room, you fucked up in the game, B. That's just the way it goes. Sometimes people learn that from experience.
Right, but here's the thing, though. So you have a partner. A partner implies work,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
and that's the thing. Nobody wants to work people they want to come into a ready-made situation, right?
Mhm.
They want to move into Russell Simmons' office, right? But they don't want to work to get to Russell Simmons' office. They want to just be able to move in on day one, right?
Yeah.
And that's what social media and all of this stuff like has brought us to. And I mean, I can't just blame social media, but you know, everybody wants to hit the lotto. You know what I'm saying? And get that money that way. Like, I mean, it happens from time to time, but it's not a high percentage of people that hit the lottery. Not in lottery terms, not in work terms, not in relationship terms. It ain't a lot of people that hit the lottery, period.
Right.
Right. But that's what everybody wants. Everybody thinks that they can have it all. I can sit on my ass and be a content creator, and then this guy that's done everything that he had to do. So, and it's just funny because women think that I believe that women in a lot of ways think that men come ready built for them. Right.
Yeah.
But he worked to get to where he is. So what make you think he gonna choose your ass?
Right. At the
Right?
end of
What
the
do
day.
you right? What do you have? What do you bring? What do you know what I mean? Like, you got to do something besides, you know, you can't say I inspire him, or you know what I mean, like some goofy shit like that. You gotta fucking do something.
You better learn some
Yeah.
mathematics like my mama.
Right.
Learn some math like my mom. You know, you've gotta be a contributor to the entire thing. You know, it's not, and even those situations are different now. You know, even though a lot of people could use like someone to, a lot of fellows probably could use someone to help to manage their finances for them to bring it up there. But you know, most of these women, if you talk about giving them the finances, they're going shopping.
Yeah. But
Oh
And
you know
yeah.
what, John? You know what, John? It's a strange thing with this. It's because, you know, when you were asking what are they bringing, and this isn't, I don't mean, this isn't meant to sound bad, but some of these women, and not in all situations, but because it's such a wide spectrum of them, there's women who, when you ask what they're bringing children. They
mm,
are,
Right.
they already have kids. So not only are they asking for the man's money, but they're asking him to raise children that are not his. And what he has to do, and I have no problem with men doing it at all. I mean, because you know that's exact. You know that's a good thing if a man, you know, he finds a woman he loves, she has a child or two, and he's raising those kids, and maybe they have a couple kids, and that, you know, and that works out all the time. I see it all the time. There isn't anything wrong with it per se. But what you're asking a man to do is essentially take care of you, your child or children, and another man who does not live in the house has say in his house. And he has say in his house because his children are there. So
Sounded real Kevin Samuels.
there you go. But that's just the way it is. So
Absolutely, I agree.
let's just say I'm a man making $300,000-$400,000 a year. My choice and options of women that I'm going to have to pick from are not going to, I can get anybody. Like I'm not sitting here, I can date a woman who has a career and is established, attractive woman, makes good money. I could date a woman who's just a traffic, don't have any money, but she's a good person. I have so many options. So that's the trick with it. All these women who are trying to get these types of guys, there's just not enough of them for the current demand. And so there's going to be a lot, unfortunately, and this is unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of single women left over because they're trying to get somebody that they have no chance of getting. It's
well,
if I took 5 women, John, and I said to them, "There's a guy over there, he makes $300,000, and he's going to marry one of you." All right, one woman. There's going to be one woman that's smart out of the pack. And then there's going to be one woman that's lucky. The smart woman is going to bail out of the competition, and she's going to settle with the average dude, blue collar man making good money, and she might be married and stay married the rest of her life. That's the smart woman. one woman's going to get lucky because he's going to marry her. The other 3 are going to be left with nothing because he can only marry one of them. So
Well,
what do? They got to go back into the pool again and play the same game over and over again.
Well, this was kind of what she was talking about when I say she was cooking. She wasn't just discussing about just that. She was also discussing the simple fact that just because this man makes $300,000 a year doesn't make him a catch. He could be abusive. He could be destructive. He could be controlling. He could be he could be just more for you, for anything and anyone. He could be really essentially looking for a female slave. And because your mom ain't really taught you no better other than find the guy with the most money, you're pretty much going to be stuck with what it was. You know, so I don't know. Go ahead, Greg.
Go ahead, Greg. Go ahead, Greg.
I think just kind of circling back to that lottery thing, it's only like 6.5–7% of American households that make over 200,000.
Yes.
Right. So if we I don't know what the numbers would be if you took out all the married couples, right? But if you were just looking for single men, if you were only looking for single men that made over 200 grand, I'm guessing you would be looking at 2 to 3%.
It's honestly, Grant, the numbers is changes a little bit, but you're looking at about say 5%. But then when you take out married men and you take out gay men, that number probably drops to about 2 or 3%.
Okay. You said what, men?
There's the men who are making this is the way it works. Think about it. Most men who are making good money, they might already be married. You know, they already got their together. They already got their stuff. They're not, you know, they're off the market. So what's left? Gay men are off the market.
But that's why I say households. That's why I say households that make that much money, because we don't necessarily know what the percentage is of single people. But I'm with you. I think it would probably be around somewhere between 1 and 3% of single men that were available to you as a woman that earns over 200,000, not 300. 300 is got to be way less. But 200,000, you're looking at somewhere between 1 and 3% of men. Right?
Yeah, and that's available. Yes.
Right. So again, why you?
That's the question.
I'm not saying, because the whole what do you bring to the table? That's not even a question. So, but to amplify X's point that the young lady was talking about, like what kind of man is this guy? So you're looking at, let's call it 2% just to split the difference. Out of this 2% of people, what percentage of that 2% is date worthy or relationship worthy or marriage worthy? Right? That's got to be an even lesser percentage. And we all know that in America, in order to grind and make that kind of money, you have to be kind of married to your job. You know, if you're a doctor, you're putting in long hours. If you're a lawyer, you're putting in long hours. You know, if you whatever you do to make that money, you work in long hours a lot of times. So how are you able to cultivate that quote unquote relationship that you want if this guy gotta work all of those hours in order to get that money? Right? It's not money. There's not money just falling out the sky or growing on trees or whatever. People have to go in and put in hours to earn this money. So how do you take from this 2% that's now dwindled down to about 0.5%? Once who's relationship eligible? Let's say it's 0.5%. Why you? Why would he pick you?
Well, Grant, that's the ultimate question. And then, you know, I'm going to throw another little monkey wrench in it, but not to make it even worse, but it is going to make it worse. Women also like height. So now,
absolutely,
the guy got to be a certain height with the money. The money. So now, you only left with NBA players and maybe some NFL players. There's no, if you start throwing in all these other variables, you know, because when I told you about that list I do in counseling, money, when at a certain dollar amount made, height was usually 9 times out of 10, 2 to 5 on the sheet. So when you start doing that, the man that they're looking for is a unicorn.
Right.
Because he does not exist.
Let me tell
Then
you
you
what.
start throwing in the thing where they say, oh, he's got to have the little edge on him. So now you got to have a little Tupac type, Tupac-like,
right,
and tall, and make the money. It just does not. This person is like a Frankenstein. They're trying to build this Frankenstein man. It does not exist.
Well, you're not
So
going to have
the
them
guy
alone.
you need to be with, like it was 20, 30 years ago, your husband, and I tell this to women all the time, your husband lives 20 to 30 minutes away from you maximum, and you see him pretty regularly. You just are not attracted to him because he doesn't have those external factors that you're quote unquote wanting.
People always want things that they can't have. That's just human nature.
That's
It's
the way
human
it
nature. We all want the things we can't have. The reason why I found the conversation to be really great and interesting is because here's the deal. I see people waking up because there's no financial answer to that question. And that's the whole thing. Everything that we've talked about is finance and money driven. There's no financial answer to that question. The answer is it's the choice of what type of quality of life are you going to have. This is the decision that they were making back then. When I was in this conversation, I thought about you, Grant, when you always talk about you can't go back to an age, or actually I had heard the clip. You can't go back to an age, you can't make people go back and think the way that they used to think in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and think that it's going to be like good for now. It's just not going to work. But it's up to the people to actually recognize that what we're doing right now doesn't work. And we have to change things. And the only way we have that is with good conversation. I don't know where we're going to find it, though, because we're only going to try to keep mid-conversation.
Here we go. Yeah, but you know what the sad part of that, though, is that the people that are growing up, like, you know, Ayana's 25. At 25, this is what she knows, is what's been here for the last, you know, probably let's call it 20 years that she can probably remember. You know, so what her foundation is built on is this last 20 years. So she's just coming up in this time thinking that this is like what's hot, other than, you know, what I have told her or showed her.
Right.
It's
a different.
Go ahead. So, but the question just is how does that group make that adjustment? Because they don't know that there should be an adjustment or could be an adjustment.
Well, through a lot of pain, unfortunately, because the people who are ahead of them aren't really good examples. They're not wiser. They're none the wiser. They're still trying to figure it out, and they may never figure it out. You know, I was thinking about this in terms of even child rearing. And when you're dealing with kids, it's like, you know, I like to think that I basically batted 500, you know, at this point with getting them to listen to me. And one was like interested in saying, all right, you know what, Dad, you do offer a peek around the corner. Let me see what you're talking about over here. And the other one was like, you know, well, you know, what you said makes sense, but that's not what everybody else is doing, and that's not what's popular. So I'm going to run with what's popular. So we only have so much influence over the people that we come into contact with. And we have to always keep that in mind. No matter what we put out there, we could be professing these things all the time. You know, dads profess abstinence to their daughters, and then they become freshmen at colleges and they never see them again. You know, so this is just the way that it goes, and this is just the way that things are. And we're having these conversations, and I'm just going to go ahead and address something else that really, really kind of got underneath my It didn't really get underneath my skin. I'm not even gonna lie because it does bother me. But one thing about this show and about this panel is that this show is for people who want to hear honest conversation. Um, we're not giving away any doctorates degrees on this panel. We're talking about real life experience and what we know, things that we know, and how we encounter things. And if you have a problem with how people encounter things, other people, how other people perceive things, I don't know what to tell you. This is not we're not trying to convince everyone to think the way that we think, talk the way that we talk. But we make some very good points on the show, such as just by changing the verbiage of how we talk about different things, it doesn't mean that these things don't exist. Whether you say unalived or the M word, it's still the M word. So while we have all these people and all these, I guess, academics, maybe intelligent individuals, I don't know what they call themselves or what they aspire to, um, coming through into these spaces and thinking that their world is everyone else's world and it's the only thing that matters. That's what's wrong with the world. That's what's wrong with people. Because personally, I can say something very bad about the black community or about the Latino community. Say something horrible about the Latino community. Let's say, like, for example, they all shine their cars. For example, okay, they can get mad and be upset and aggrieved and everything, and they would have a right to do that. You know, I, as a black man, can walk into a store and get followed by a security person. Do I have a right to get mad? Or did they just tell you, hey, bro, you know how things are? I'm not for accepting how things are always, or pretty much ever, until it's fucking right. Until it's right. And I don't have any advanced degrees. All I have is this big old brain and a whole bunch of experiences in places that most people wouldn't even believe. Speaking of which, I'm going to switch the subject and I want to talk about our old friend, Mr. Craig Mack.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Did you see the video with Gene Deal online?
No, I saw the blurb. I saw the
Yeah.
blurb. I didn't look up the article.
Did you see it, Andrew?
I think so, but I didn't know the guy's name. But I did see the video.
Yeah, that's the guy that's been telling all the puffs biz.
All the yeah.
It was a Gene Deal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bodyguard.
Yeah. I did see that.
And I watched it. It wasn't so bad. It wasn't so bad. It's like, it's not personal. I'm like, he's trying to make money. I mean, honestly, where he got that information from, basically what they're saying in the video is that it's coming out that they say that Craig possibly passed away from the monster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I had heard that rumor in the very beginning, and we talked about that amongst ourselves, right, Grant?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the decision was basically, I wasn't going to say anything about it because it ain't none of my business. It's rest in peace. But people seem to be trying to tie this in with as if Craig was like sleeping with men. Do you think Craig ever slept with a man, Grant?
I doubt it. I mean, I can't say 100% because I wasn't there, but I've been knowing. I mean, I've been knowing Craig, man, since '84 when I moved to Long Island and rocked with this dude in tight quarters, close quarters, and I never gleaned anything like that from him.
So here's the thing, like Craig lived with us, and I know pretty much damn near fucking everything.
Mm-hmm.
That happened. from the very beginning, from the time of Mary J. Blige and everything,
Yep.
up until the time that, and I'm not going to confirm any rumors here or anything, but up until the time that supposedly he was going to leave Bad Boy, and we all know that they did leave, that he did leave the label, and supposedly start up with someone else and everything. I know all that shit and everything, but I've never once thought about telling people secrets in order to make money. To me, it seems like kind of like unsavory to a certain extent. And I feel like honestly that there's an agenda. And I think I know where that agenda is coming from. And I just think it's foul, bro. I think it's
So
foul.
so let me say this, because somebody sent me the article, right? So I, or the blurb or whatever. So I clicked on the blurb. I saw what the headline was like. Basically, Craig died from the high five. Uh, so when I clicked on the article, I read like the first couple of paragraphs of the thing, and there were two names mentioned in it, and I'm not going to mention those names, but we know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a male and a female. The female who's mentioned, I saw her maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago. She was here. There was a concert. Eric and Parrish were here. I went down. She came up.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of met up, and there was a big blow up backstage because she put that out in the universe among people who
Right.
like us
Right.
love Craig and wasn't trying to hear it. Well,
Right.
it turned into a whole situation. So when I saw the article, I said, well, let me see like who said it. And when I
And
saw the
who's
two
that?
names, I'm like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
So and in my mind, I said somebody got paid.
Yeah. And it's just not a good look. Listen, what I know, the man was living with two women at the time of his death.
Right.
Okay. It's not even a question. One of the biggest, like, people can tell you about that, and this will tell you, like, one of the people can tell you that, yeah, these guys were falling out. They don't even know where it began. The falling out came out with when they were fighting over what was going to be the second single.
Right.
And everything. And he wanted to put out the record that ended up being the second single because Puff was just like, fuck it, and everything. And that's when he had made up his mind, and that's when those things went like whatever and everything. But for most of that time, that person wasn't even around. That was like a later marriage. It's like, what I'm saying is, like, they don't know what I just don't like the agenda. And I said to somebody, I actually made a comment on there. I was like, it's bad to see people dragging this guy like through the mud, RIP. You know what I'm saying? And this dude, like, I guess somebody must have read the comment, and they were feeling the comment, and they were like, oh, don't worry, you didn't even know him.
But that's the thing. So remember a couple years ago, you put me in contact with the guy that wanted to do a doc on Craig or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to him, and when I talked to him, I knew where he was coming from. It was not you're not trying to do it. You're trying to do something salacious. You're not trying to just tell a story, right? Now, if you're telling a story and there is some kind of heated parts in it, okay, cool. But you just looking for the heated parts to amplify those.
Right.
And that's my problem with it. So even the Craig Mack doc that I saw that's online or whatever, it wasn't bad. It wasn't
It just wasn't
the
about
best.
him. It
Right.
wasn't about
And
him.
that's the thing. It wasn't about him. And people that know us know how we got down with Craig. you know. And I think that because he had that level of fame, and then he passed away, the way that he kind of left the scene and all that kind of stuff, is just kind of, it seems like it's just kind of shrouded in mystery. And for it now to come out that, you know, possibly, you know, he got taken out by the high five, then now there's a whole thing brewing. But it just like I said, I in my mind, somebody got a check.
Yeah, and that's all it comes down to. And that's
No doubt.
exactly what it comes down to.
Let me just say this real quick, John, pertaining to this.
Are you gonna say, y'all stop talking in codes? No,
no, y'all good. Y'all do them. So it's you know that, and y'all, so that's cool. You know, I didn't know. I'm speaking as a fan of his music. You know, what I can say is that I believe this was 94. He had the biggest record of the year.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Period. Hands down, unanimous decision. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
His legacy was he made a hit records.
Yeah.
Let this man rest in peace.
Yeah.
You know, don't leave this dude. The word is rest in peace. Why are we gonna bring up stuff about something and there's no it's really nobody's business pertaining to what he did or what he does or what he has or anything like that. There's so many other, there's a multitude of things we can be out here talking about pertaining to some of the stuff that's going on in the music industry now. That's 10 times worse than anything he's probably ever done.
Yeah.
And so let this man rest in peace, man. I mean, this dude contributed to the golden era of hip hop and was an integral piece of that golden era. And I think that's all that really matters.
When I think about Craig, what I remember is that Craig didn't have people just remember Flavor in Your Ear, but he also had the iconic Zoom Zoom song under the title of MCEs. So, like, to me, you know, y'all can talk. Like, I understand everybody want to get a check and everything, and I know where Grant, you and I, we're on the same fucking path and everything, thought process. I'm not going to be making a check off of that shit. You know, like when he passed away, anything that I did for the memory of my boy and everything to help them. And I wasn't thinking about anything else. Anything that was talked about or whatever, it was always talked about. And I always said, yeah, we'll see. Like, whatever. I do other things. I'm all right. Know what I mean? I'm all right. We don't need this drama. But I hate to see them try to take this and turn this into some great big, like, sexual cabal thing. Now cats they're just looking for things everywhere. And if you don't want to talk about the struggle, like, to me, Craig has a great story, you know.
Absolutely.
And kind of ended kind of tragically or differently, you know. But you know, he had an interesting story, without a doubt.
But here's the thing. I mean, and because I understand what's going on, and I don't have any harsh feelings about it. I hope I don't sound like I do. But what you have to understand also is that based off of this whole Puff situation, that this was gonna come up at some point. You know what I mean? Like all of this was gonna come out. It ain't because it ain't gonna
be made after that.
Right. And it ain't gonna stop at Craig. Right. Craig is just the first one. You know, something is gonna come out about Big, something is gonna come out about Mace. Whatever the thing is, you know, but something is gonna come out.
Well, you see, this is like kind of like where we began the show, you know, before the pre-show, because all these rumors are based upon sexual activity, homosexual, bisexual activity, and it's such a big scandal, and it makes such great noise, but no one's supposed to talk about it.
Well, it still makes people uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Listen,
And
they got to get out of their bags with it. Like, honestly speaking, like last week, Andrew, you came on, we were talking about the political thing, and you like jumped in the middle of the conversation. JD Vance has something on the internet with him in drag, and I was like, we talked about it, right? And the assumption was that what it came down to was that you shouldn't be wearing drag and then going out and enacting policies that are against that community that you were actually a member of. I think I literally actually said that.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I went and I double checked this week to see that. And I actually came up with a report that was on the major news, CNBC, nationwide news. And they literally said that LGBTQ groups were actually protesting him for that exact same reason. Why is it homophobia when we talk about it, but it's okay for everybody else to talk about it? Is it racism when they talk about it and everybody? You understand? Like, where's the line here? You know.
So I'm gonna tell you my problem with the whole thing. So it's like ADHD, right? Let's just take ADHD. Once you give it a name, then everybody can claim it, right? And we don't know for a fact who has ADHD and who doesn't. But it's easy for people to then say, "Oh, that kid has ADHD." Right? You follow my train of thought right there? Mm-hmm. So now since homophobic is a word, mm-hmm. right? Anything you say, someone can easily say, "Hey, that's homophobic. That's homophobic. That's homophobic," because now you've given it a name. Right? But that's all you've done. You haven't really homophobic, it implies an intent, right?
And it really implies a fear. I mean, it's literally right. The word phobic
right.
is literally
phobia is a fear, right? Know? But I'm saying when you label something as being homophobic, to me, understanding that there is no fear, right? It's just a word that they decided was going to be the word. It implies that there's an intent to target someone or that community, right? And I don't, and that's why I don't like the word. Mm-hmm. I hate when people point it out. It's like bully. I don't like people who use the word bully, because bully is an opinion. Homophobic is an opinion, right? Mm-hmm. And opinions are not universal. It's your opinion that somebody's a bully.
Experiences.
Right. And it's not up to me to police my language based on you. My language is my language because of my experiences, and what's brought me every day that brought me to today has influenced my language.
Don't you believe that there's a certain level of suppressing your story, though, that comes with bringing everything else in? You know I feel that way as a Black person, and you know what? Sometimes you just really like kind of lit a light in my mind, because we shouldn't be calling all these people racist, these white people racist, because they're not all racist. We should be calling them Blackophobic.
Right. Right.
I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
They are literally Blackophobic. It's a fear of Black people coming in and moving in next door to you, maybe dating your daughter and her liking it.
It's not the moving in next door that they worried about.
It's the moving in.
It's the other moving in.
Yeah. And it's a fear of like, lack of procreation on the behalf of a lot of people in the white race. Did you see what Donald Trump has? One of his campaign promises is that he's going to pay for in vitro fertilization.
Yeah.
So
Trump is a wild boy, dog. I mean, love him or hate him, Trump is a wild boy.
The way I see it is like they're really setting up rich white men to have as many babies as they possibly want because they can impregnate as many women as they would like with their genes. And the government is going to pay for it, and they can go out and they can make these super babies. So these older men can continue to procreate, and these young guys that are basically whatever they are and everything, they're falling off and everything because they don't know how to talk to a woman. They don't know how to date a woman. They're joining groups like that, groups of incels, and they're not working on social skills. Their idea of working on social skills is vote for Trump because if he becomes president, then you can force yourself upon a woman and she'll have to carry a baby to term, and maybe they'll even get to force you into marriage. And what they're saying is that he's saying is that there is no there's no reasonable abuse would no longer he'd like to abolish abuse as a reason to get divorced.
Right. Well, John, when I made that statement, I just want to make a clarification here, not on the statement, but what I do, what I did, I'll say. I taught diversity, equity, and inclusion for 10 years. I literally was a diversity, equity, inclusion teacher. So I talked on gay issues. I talked on the LGBTQ community. I've even done exercises pertaining to people to try to get over the quote unquote homophobia and all these things. I wasn't making a comment in any way, shape, or form to be disrespectful to that community at all. The point I was making, and you stated it, is that the guy who and the party that he represents is anti that community. Regardless of what they say, they're anti that community. And so when one of the guy who's saying it does something, and this happens quite a bit, because he's not the only one, and we hinted at it last week on the show, but we didn't say anything. But a lot of times, this is what's going on. You're having people who are living the life, but voting to make it difficult for their community.
Right.
But they won't necessarily say it per se. And that was the whole premise of me even bringing it up in the first place. It's a contradiction.
Because Peter Thiel has the ability to have a husband and a boyfriend who commits in one of his apartments and go on with his life and set up all these different things and continue with his life because he can afford that. But not all members of the LGBTQ community are rich people. A lot of them, are working normal jobs and are normal people. We can talk about other people, can we not? Can other people talk about us? Why are we afraid not to have these conversations? Because actually it's the opposite of homophobia. When you actually have the conversation, you mention them, you exist. I see you. Isn't that what it's supposed to be about? I see you. First and foremost.
I think that the term, now that we're talking about this, I think that the term is misapplied. Right? The term homophobic, it should not apply to someone who talks about homosexual lifestyle or LGBTQ or whatever the political correct thing to say is. I think homophobia should be applied to the person who is a homosexual and still in the closet. Right? That's the person that's actually homophobic because you are afraid of being a homosexual. Right? So when you talk about somebody who participates in the community and then on the low, right? You're right. You participate in it on the low, but then on the high side, you trying to suppress that community. That's actually the homophobic.
That's actually just forget about homophobic because I'm getting past the labels. I'm really not interested in the labels of people, black, white, Indian, Christian, Jew, whatever. I'm just interested in the quality of what type of person you are. Because when I came back from the shit on May 31st from my death, I had complete and total clarity. And I still have complete and total clarity. So what you described right then and there is someone who is a fucking cretin. They are
Absolutely.
the worst possible person. I don't care whether you are, I don't care what label you wear. When you do shit like that, you're a fucking cretin. And I'm going to attack you every goddamn time. Because people need to recognize and see. If you want to have quality interactions with people and you want everything to be honorable, you want people to have honor and decency, you have to behave decently. And you have to put forward people who do decent things. My problem with him is that, and my problem with the rest of the world, I don't have a problem with what he does behind closed doors. I understand he has to do what he has to do. My problem is exactly this. He should be able to run as he is. And there shouldn't be any problem. People should be looking at his policies and believing what he's going to do enough to want to alleviate him. But because his policies suck and he's wavering all over the place, he doesn't really have an identity per se. He's just a fucking, he's a fucking cretin. He's a cretin. He's the worst type of person. You see, while we're sitting here and we're making comments about, and we're about to vote for all these people that are the worst types of versions of ourselves, we have to recognize that we force these people into these corners.
Okay? Absolutely. I agree.
We force them into these corners. You can't be, you have to behave a certain way in order to hold a certain job. If you even come out with the idea that you want to serve people, that would be in government. But there's people that want to control people, and that's the part that's politics. Government has a salary. Politics has donors. And that's the big difference. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to land the plane right here. And I'm going to land the plane right here with the same way that those two things are associated are the same ways that dating is associated. Okay? You can't have, we have to make changes in the political system and the people that we choose to lead us in order for us to have an actual change. You have to make changes in the way that you are choosing your mate in order for you to have a difference in your life and what's going on. And fuck everybody who don't like what we was talking about in the show. If you get to listen to this show and you know we talking about you, then that's okay, because you know how we are. You can always pick up the phone and call me. Born in Trouble, 8th episode. From Detroit, Michigan, the city wind king, Mr. Grant Lancaster. Is there anything you'd like to say?
First of all, I think this is 9. I think. Don't quote me. But no, I'm good. Peace out, man. It's always good to see y'all, man. Good to see y'all. Excellent. Good to have some good conversation.
Excellent. And from Columbia, where the women are beautiful, but Andrew's in his room, Mrs. Johnson. You got to play this. You got to tell her to watch this. There's beautiful women in Columbia, and you took the time out of your day to come and do a podcast because there's only one for Andrew, Mr. Andrew Johnson.
That's right. I'm in my room. That's right. But yeah, let me just say this real quick. You know, like I said, my intention is never to offend anyone or hurt anyone's feelings. But I've always been, and I always will be, a truth teller. And it's the truth teller is for the good. It isn't for bad or evil. And there are going to be people who don't like what you say. And if they have an issue with me, you know, they can reach out, you know, through the show or however. And I'll be more than happy to sit down and explain to them why I said what I said and why I do what I do.
That's what's
and
up.
I'm glad, and I want to say this last thing. I'm glad John gives me the platform to say what I say and do what I do. So thanks, brother.
That's one thing about this show. We do not censor people's opinions, even when they go too far. We've had a couple of guests that have gone too far, Grant mentioned one before. We laugh about that. But that just will get you not invited back to the platform. But listen, I love my brothers. Thank you very much for showing up tonight. Born in Trouble, we're gonna take next week off because it's going to be the Labor Day holiday or whatever, and we're still gonna be recovering on Thursday. So Born in Trouble. See y'all later. Peace.
Hey.
Peace.